Now that we are done with the design of our application window, we already have added all of these components. It is important that you save all those updates. And notice in here that there is an asterisk, which means that we have not saved yet our program or our application. So to save, you just click this button, Save button, and notice that the asterisk disappears to mean that it's already saved. Now this time, let's try to run our application and see what would appear. So you click this one, Run as Java application. So this is now our running application. So notice that it looks like what we have in the design tab. And say we try to input some values here for ID, maybe 001. And then for the name, say Juan Cruz. For the course, say BSCPE. And for the year, when you click this one, it should appear some choices like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 for first year, second year is 2, 3 for third year, 4 for fourth year. But what have you noticed? There are no choices that appears. So we will work on that later. Also notice that when we click the radio button, female, okay, so that's correct. It is selected. And then when we click the male radio button, it is also selected. But in this case, both are selected, which should not happen. That simply means that these two radio buttons are not grouped yet, because in a group radio button, only one of the radio buttons must be selected or active, and all the rest of the buttons in that group are unselected or inactive. So we will work on that later, how to make this a group radio button. Say for score, we input 80, and for total points, we input 90. And notice that we cannot input here in the grade text field and in the remarks text field, because we set the properties of these two text fields to false, the editable property to false. When you check this, it is checked, and you can also uncheck it. When you click the submit button, nothing happens. The exit button, nothing happens also, because we have not added yet any action or event to these buttons. So for now, let's just close this application by clicking this X button, the close button. To add those choices in the year level 1, 2, 3, 4, we will go to the source code, and after this part here, the declaration of the year combo box, we will add this code, which is a for loop that adds a new item to the year combo box. And what is that item? It is the value of I, where I is from 1 to 4. So this is 1 for first year, 2 for second year, and lastly 4 for fourth year, because we now have 4-year program. We don't have 5-year program anymore. Like in the computer engineering, we have until 4th year, okay? In the old curriculum, we have 5 or for 5th year. Okay, let's save that. Next, to create a group radio button, we have to declare in here a new field. Okay, say we call it BG, and the type of BG is this object type button group, and we set that to private. Okay, and save this. Notice that it's automatically added the import for the button group. And then we have to move to this part of the source code after the declaration or the creation of the female and the male radio buttons, and add this code. So BG is our group radio button. We're going to add this button female and this button male. So now this female radio button and male radio button are grouped, and the group is called BG. BG is now the group radio button. Okay, let's save our work. This time, let's try to check if our new updates are working. So let's try to run again our application. You click here, run as Java application. Okay, so this is now our running application. Okay, so you can type anything there, say just to test. And notice that in the combo box, we now have choices 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and say you select 3. That means that the student is a third-year student. If we check the female radio button and also the male, what have you noticed? The female is unselected once you select the male, and then when you select the male is unselected. Okay, so they cannot be both selected, just like a while ago. So our group radio button is working. Okay, only one is selected at a time. So let's just close this for now. Let's go back now to our design page. And the next thing we want to do is to add events or actions to the submit and exit buttons. What we want to happen is when the user finish all the inputs from ID up to requirement, the next thing that the user will do is to click the submit button to be able to store all those values entered here to some variables, and then maybe those variables could save those values to a file or display them on the console. Okay, so how do we add events to these two buttons? Okay, what we're going to do first with submit is to right click this. Okay, position the mouse here, select it, right click, and then go to add event handler and to mouse clicked. Okay, so automatically this code is generated. So for the method mouse clicked, what we want to happen is that our application will capture all of those inputs and store them in local variables and process them later. So I already prepared a long code for that to save time. And so all I have to do is to paste it, and later I will explain to you how the code works. Okay. So on mouse clicked for the submit button, we first declare some local variables because we want to store all of those inputs into local variables and then process them depending on how you want to process all of this data. And then we use try catch to capture some input runtime errors or input exceptions. So we set first the score and total to 0, initialize them to 0, and then we get the text or the user input, okay? So we use the method getText to get the text that the user inputs in the ID text field, as well as in the name text field, in the course text field, And for the year combo box, whatever is selected, 1 for first year, 2 for second year, etc., we use the method get selected item. Okay, and then we use ecast to convert that to integer because this method will normally return a string type value. So we need to convert that to integer because our local variable year is type integer to avoid type mismatch. For the gender local variable, we want to get what is selected from the group radio buttons. So remember this construct. We call this the conditional operator. Okay, so this is the condition that needs to be evaluated. If it's true, then this is returned. If that condition is false, this is returned. So if female button is selected, then it will get the label of that radio button, which is the string female. So the value of gender is the string female. But if it is not selected, then it is the male button label that is returned and assigned to gender. So this time gender is male instead of female. Okay. And for the score and total, we simply get the text from the score text field and total text field. And since this method get text would return by default a string value, we need to convert those string values to double type by calling parse double method under the object double. The reason for that is that score and total are double type, okay, to prevent the type mismatch error. Next, after we have collected all of those inputs, we then proceed to the computation of the grade and determining the remarks. Now, we need this condition to be true first before we process the data, okay? What our condition is what? What is our requirement? That all the entries must be filled, meaning there is no blank entry. That ID is having an input value, name is not empty, course is not empty, and the course, and I'm sorry, the score and the total are greater 0. And for the, if that is true, then how do we compute for the grade? It's score divided by total times 100 and then convert that to integer. Okay, so to get the whole number. And after that, we pass that value, the grade value, to a method get remarks, which we have not defined yet. Okay, so as you can see, there is here a red mark to mean that there is an error. And when you mouse over that red X, it tells you the error, which is undefined. Okay, so we need to define that one later. Okay, and then once there is already a remark, what we're going to do is to display on the grade text field, okay, using the method setText to this value. Now the grade is, remember what is the type of grade? It is integer type. And the setText method accepts a parameter which is string type. So since this is integer, we concatenate it. This is concatenation, the plus sign. Concatenate it with an empty string so that the whole thing will become a string. Okay. Same is true for the remarks. We use the setText to display the value of remarks in the rem text field in our GUI application. And then we just have this optional backup display just to check the values if we have really, if the program or the application has really captured all this data correctly, we want them displayed on the console, okay, by using the system out print ln, which we could remove later if you don't need it anymore. Now, remember the error a while ago, the one that the get remarks method that we have not defined it yet. Okay, so this time we will put in here the definition for the method get remarks. Okay, so let me just paste it here, the one I already prepared to save time. So this determines the exam grade remark, and this method will return a string value. What is the string value? All of this, or I mean one of this, depending on the value of the student's grade. So if the grade is greater or equal to 96, the remark is excellent. If it is within this range, it is good, and so on. Okay. So there is an asterisk to mean that we have not saved this one yet, so we save this. Notice that the error a while ago, where is that portion? It's in here. Okay, we have an error a while ago. It's already gone because we already have defined the method get remarks on top. Okay, so let's try to run this code to see if our updates are working. So run as Java application. So this is now our running application. So let's try to input some values. So say 001, and then Juan Cruz. Course is BSCPE, and second year, male. The score is maybe 80 over 85. And then we leave this one unchecked, meaning that Juan Cruz has not submitted his clearance yet. We click the submit button. Okay. And what happened? We have here an output 94%. That's the grade of Juan Cruz. The 80 over 85, and the remarks is good. Okay. If we click the exit button, nothing happened yet because we have not added an event to this button yet. So for now, let's close the app by clicking this one. Now remember that we have this in our code, okay? The viewing of all the user inputs directed to the console. And notice that we have it indeed here in the console. We have all those values that we have entered. ID is 001, Juan Cruz, BSCPE, second year male, 80 over 85, which a while ago we have the output from our window. It's 94, the grade, and the remarks is good. And remember that the requirement for clearance is unchecked, therefore it has a false value. So if it is checked, it returns true. If it is unchecked, it returns false. Now for the exit button, let's add an event when this is clicked. So select that one, that component. Okay, wait. So just like what we did a while ago for submit button, we right click exit button. We go to add event handler, go to mouse, and mouse clicked. Okay, so this is automatically generated, this code here. And the method that will be executed when we click the exit button is this one. So what we want to happen is simply that our application will exit. Okay, so you could simply call the system exit method, and we pass 0 to mean that the application or the program exits or ends without error. Okay? If it encounters an error, then we pass 1. Okay? So again, 0 for program ends without error. Then save this. Now, what if we want that all the students' personal data will be recorded to a CSV file to keep a permanent record of all those student records? Because when you turn off your computer, all of those student records that you have entered, say you have already entered 10 student records, 20 student records, all of those will be gone when you turn off the computer, when the program ends. So you need to save all of those student records into a file, whether a text file or a CSV file. But a CSV file in this case is good since we could represent one student record in one line. So the number of lines in the CSV, that's also equal to the number of student records. So what are we going to do? First, we go to the global declaration in here and add a declaration for a file writer. Okay, from our previous lesson, remember in file number 9. So we declare a file writer, and the type of that is file writer. Okay, and this file is to be located in this directory. Okay, drive D folder CPE121 Java, and that's the file, the student.csv. Okay. Next is to add a code here, the instantiation. Okay, the new keyword. Okay, creating the instance file writer. And as I've said, that is the directory. The second parameter of the constructor when the file writer is created, the instance file writer is created, means that the CSV previous content will not be erased. Okay, so if student.csv is already existing, then the new student record added to it will simply be appended, and the previous content or the previous student records that were already recorded or written there will not be erased. If you want those previous records to be erased, and every time you run the application, only one record is saved, and that is the latest record, then you make this false. But that is not what we want to happen. Okay, we want to keep a permanent record of all the student records that were entered so far. So this second parameter must be set to true. Next is what we want to happen is when the user finish all the inputs and then click the submit button, we want all those values collected that are stored in the local variables to be written to the CSV file. So we go to the mouse clicked method event for submit and add in here the code to save the new student record data fields into the CSV. So I prepared already the code, so I just have to paste it to save time. So the meaning of this code is that we create a very long string str, which is a concat of all of those data fields, the value of ID, plus, the plus here is concat, comma, and then concat the name, concat comma, concat course, the value of course, concat comma, year, comma, gender, comma, score, comma, total, comma, grade, remarks, and then the clearance if it is true or false, submitted or not submitted, okay? Why do we put a comma in between the data fields? Because we are going to save this into a CSV file, okay? And remember that CSV is comma separated values. So we need to put the commas there. And then for the sake of checking, we display the value of str on the console, okay? And we write that to the CSV. And then we append a new line so that the next student record to be saved will be saved on the next line. So one student record will occupy one line in the CSV. So if there are 20 lines already, it means you have 20 student records written in the CSV file. Finally, for the exit button, we have to update this one because since we are now writing to a file, a CSV file, when we click the exit button, we should close the file writer, okay, to avoid data loss before this is executed or before the program ends. So we will change this one to this, okay? So close first the file writer, and then after that, exit the program, okay? We just put it inside the try catch so that whenever there is an exception that occurs or a runtime error, that will be captured and we just do nothing. We just simply want the application to continue running in spite of any exception that occurs. Okay, so before we run our program now or our application, let's check our Windows Explorer in the folder or in the directory drive D, CPE121 Java, which is the location of our CSV with the file name student.csv. Okay, notice that it does not exist yet. Okay, so these are the two files from our previous lessons, and there is no student.csv yet. This time, let's try to run our program. So you go here, click this one, run as. Again, click this one, run as Java application. Okay, this is our running application now. So say we enter again, 001, one cruise, BSCPE, and second year, male, 80/85, and then uncheck that one, click submit. Okay, so we have that grade value and the remarks value. So notice on the console output, we have those values. Okay, starting with the ID, these are all the values we have entered and these are computed. And this is our long string that concatenates or separate using a comma all of those values. And when we look at our directory, the folder where we expect the student.csv to be stored, okay, notice that we have that CSV file already. Okay, it's created. Okay, and it contains one student record, which is 1 KB, the one that we have previously entered, the record for Juan Cruz. When we open the student.csv, notice that on the first line, we have the record of Juan Cruz, okay? The ID is, unfortunately, that's 001, so all the zeros are not included. Juan Cruz, all of the second year male 80, over 85, 94 good, and the false is the clearance. Say we run it again to input a second student for Maria Clara. So we go here and run as Java application. Oops, wait. Okay, so notice all of these errors here complaining that the CSV, student.csv, is not found because I opened it. Remember a while ago, we opened the file, and when you run the application, it shouldn't be open. You should close the CSV file before running the application. Okay, let's do that again. Let's run as Java application. Say we input here 1002 and Maria Clara. The course is BSECE and say fourth year, female, and the score is say 83 over 85. Okay, and then we check the clearance, meaning Maria Clara has submitted the clearance already. And then we click submit. So for our second student record for Maria Clara, we have this output in our console. Okay, so remember those values we have input a while ago. The ID is 1002, Maria Clara, BSECE, fourth year female, the score, the total, and the grade is 97, and the remarks for that is excellent. Cleared is true because we checked the clearance to mean that Maria Clara has submitted. And then this is the long string that will be saved into the CSV file. When we check our CSV file, the student.csv, notice that we now have two lines. The first line is the record of Juan Cruz. The second line is the record of Maria Clara. And so as you add more student records, submit more student records, all of those you have submitted will be stored in the CSV file, thus keeping a permanent record of all of those student records we have entered through the application program.